So one of the big signings from last offseason was Trent Brown getting signed by the Raiders. He had one breakout season with New England where he was debatably the best run blocking tackle in the league. I think actually undebatably that. And he was really a huge part of their Super Bowl winning team with the fact that he was able to run block so well. And obviously he's a very good pass blocker as well. And so that resulted in him getting a huge contract with the Raiders. It was a 4-year, $66 million deal. Definitely quite some money for him, which is $16.5 million a year. Although the one thing worth noting is that there is a potential out, which would be after this year. They could get rid of him for basically $0 in dead cap, but if they keep him, then they basically have to pay for the rest of his contract. So interesting structured contract there. But at the same time, it really came down to how well was he going to fare? Because on one hand, it's like, listen, he's someone who's had one good season, and it was with New England. And there is a long list of people who had a great season with New England, and then that was it. And also, his great season was as a left tackle. Well, they have Colton Miller, who's a left tackle, so they're moving him to right tackle, which he has played before, but wasn't as good at when he was with San Francisco. And so I thought it was a interesting move, but I thought Brown really lived up to his contract when he was healthy and with Oakland. Like, take a look at this play, for example. It's going to be a one-on-one matchup. He's going up against Justin Houston right here. And what's going to be interesting here is that because there is a tight end who's lined up with Houston, this could, a lot of times, especially with younger defensive ends, what they would do is they would try to run around in case the tight end happens to be blocking, but that is not what Houston's going to do. He's basically going to run straight to Brown. But notice how Brown just completely isn't fooled, and he gets his arms out there, and part of it is he has just huge arms, so he's able to reach his arm, long arms, so he's able to reach them out and really get good hand placement right away. It's, maybe he was a bit surprised, but for the most part, he pretty much gets the hand placement he wants. So while Houston is going to then try to push through him, he's not able to get very far. And quite frankly, I think if he had 10 minutes to try to get through Brown, I'm not sure if he was going to on that one, because once Brown gets the hand placement, it's ball game at that point. He's just too big of a guy. You're not going to be able to push him around. I mean, I know his height and weight gets talked about a lot, but it still is worth mentioning. He's 6'8" and 359 pounds. That's what he's listed, which is just absurd. Amazingly, he's also not the tallest starting tackle that they have. Colton Miller is 6'9", so definitely a couple long guys on the edge, and so I do think that that's something that it's just so difficult to go up against because he has such a big wingspan and he's so big, you're not going to push him around. He's just, it's really, incredible. I don't know how he ended up going in the 7th round. Makes no sense to me, but he's living up to his contract. And it's not just the fact that he's big. I mean, listen, he's big, but he's also a tackle. If he was just big, he would, be a guard. There's a reason why he plays tackle, and it's because he has the footwork to get away with it, too. Like, on a play like this, what's going to happen is that he's going to basically push that edge rusher over to where you can have 85, the tight end. He can make sure that he's now going to finish off that block. Then you're going to have Miller. You're going to have Brown run over. He blocks a linebacker. So, this is the kind of block that, for one thing, it takes some strength to help out his tight end get in position. But it's going to take some footwork and some speed to get up to block a linebacker. But watch how he's able to do both of those things. I mean, the camera moves over because it didn't matter, but he was able to get over and make that block. And, if that run did cut back to the inside, he would have helped get the linebacker out of the way, and he really helped get the edge rusher in a position where a tight end was able to completely take him out of the play, which is obviously a great neutralizer. The reality is you can run plays through him in a lot of ways because he's not just someone who's going to do his part. He's not just someone who's going to make his block. He's going to do much more than that. He'll do more than that. And this is an example where what's going to happen is that it's going to be a one-on-one matchup. So you're thinking, wait, Jackson, all you have to do is just do your block on this play. But really, I mean, Brown is a one-man double team. That's what he is. Because watch what he's going to do. Where really he gets his left arm attached to the right shoulder pad right here, and then he twists like that. And watch how, with that twist, I mean, he's completely taken a defensive lineman just out of the play. He's moved him. It's very difficult to move some of these guys with two offensive linemen. He can do it by himself. I mean, he is that good. Jacobs, good piece of running to, find a gap that's perfect to gain the most yards as well. So good job by him. But just a tremendous block by Brown, and he does this all the time. It's why the Patriots won a Super Bowl in a lot of ways. I mean, people might say this is ridiculous, but I don't think it's totally ridiculous. You could make an argument he was the most valuable piece of that New England 2018 championship. You really could. And I think I would make the argument that he was the best player at his select position. Again, Brady was great for one game, and I'm just talking the playoff run. Brady was great in the, Kansas City Chiefs game, but he wasn't particularly great in a couple of those other games. He was great I'd probably say Brady now that I think about it, but, Brown was still very good. This is another example of how he can be so effective, where what's going to happen is that right after the ball is snapped, before the ball is snapped, he's going to be going up one-on-one against an Indianapolis player. It's going to be play action to the right side of the screen, and so watch what he's going to do, and his sole goal, since it's play action to the right side of the screen and Carr's going to the left, is get the edge rusher as far to the right side of the screen as possible. But watch how he does this in a way where he keeps him close enough to Jacobs that it sort of gives that edge rusher hope that he can potentially, get around and make a play. Oh, I can finally, beat Brown. It's not very easy to do. But of course, that doesn't work out because that's not what the play is designed for. Just understanding the role, understanding the situation. Again, not too difficult of a block to make, but he still made it as well as you can, despite the fact that it's kind of a low degree of difficulty type block. This one's another very good play where what's going to happen is that it's similar to the play I showed you earlier where, he first helps just block the edge rusher over so that tight end can then finish off the block, and then he moves up to block a linebacker. One of the key differences here, though, is that while that last play was a designed running play just completely away, where he pretty much, even if he totally sucked at it, it wouldn't have changed the play. This one, it's going to be sort of up the middle, so it's still not quite super important, but it definitely is important. And what's going to happen here is that, first, again, watch how he so easily gets that player over so that 83 can make the block, but then he gets perfect hand placement with a linebacker, which is just insane. I mean, typically it doesn't happen because as a linebacker, you can look ahead, see who's in charge of blocking you, and you have time to adjust to it. But even with that time, Brown was still able to get over there and find a way to get that perfect hand placement. And again, like I said, when Brown has good hand placement on you, it's not going to work out too well. He does his best to get around it, but it's too late at that point. Just a really good play by Brown. Really good technical play. You do have to think that his 1 year in New England, he learned a lot of really good techniques, and I thought he was actually underrated in San Francisco, but he definitely found his stride in New England, and is continuing to be great here in Oakland and now in Las Vegas. It's kind of like that whole, thing where it's like, well, what would you rather have? A smaller guy whose technique is perfect, or a bigger guy who has poor technique? And in the course of one game, you might take the smaller guy, but when you're drafting, you might say it's a lot easier to teach a guy technique than it is to teach a guy to grow 6 inches. So, let's stick with Brown, and, for good reason. This guy is just a monster. One more play is this one where he's going to be moving over a little bit to make this block because, again, you have a defender who's all the way on the right side of the screen. There's two Oakland players in this. Again, I keep saying Oakland. I keep trying to check myself because I know it's Vegas now, but they were Oakland Raiders at the time of this game. But anyways, they're both going to be running routes. So again, Brown's going to move over. And really, watch how right after this ball is snapped, just see how much really space this Indianapolis player has. And he can do a couple of things. What I would do is try to run around Brown, but that's because Brown would literally murder me if he pushed me because he's that much bigger than me. But, you could decide, hey, I'm going to try to power through him here. I have this much space. A lot of guys can do this against maybe weaker tackles, but it's not going to work against Brown at all. He basically just bounces off. I don't think Brown even took a step backwards. I think he absorbed a hit completely. It was like running into a concrete pillar right there. Probably not a fun time. But again, that's just what Brown does. He's just so big and strong, such a physical player, and he can move too. He's not just someone who is, he's like one of those basketball players that's, he's like LeBron James, where it's like, yeah, he might be 6'8", but he can still move like he's 6 feet tall. Well, Brown, he can maybe not, he can't, okay, he's not, I'm not saying he's as good as LeBron James at anything, but I am saying that he has that, he's big, but he can also move very well. I thought he played well. I mean, you could definitely see a huge improvement in the offensive line from this year as opposed to last year. Part of that was also Colton Miller. I thought took a big step up, and I thought he was underrated 2 years ago. That's just what I thought. But he definitely looked like a rookie last year. In his rookie year, and now in his second year, he looked a lot better. But that's just what I think. Again, maybe I'll make a video for Colton Miller on another day because he's an interesting guy to talk about by himself. He led the league in sacks in his rookie year, but then last year he gave up 7 sacks. So, still nothing spectacular, but at least a lot better than what he did his rookie year. And I still also feel like a lot of his sacks were just more mistakes than they were him not being physically good enough. So definitely, I think in terms of talking about tackles, the tackle play is already good, and I think it's getting better. And for a team that likes to run the ball and control the clock like the Raiders do, it makes sense to have someone who, again, the last time we've seen a team win a Super Bowl that way was 2 years ago, and it was largely because of Brown. I keep bringing up that Super Bowl run just because it was so impressive by him, I thought. And, I just think that it's kind of something that I think that the Raiders could potentially try to do themselves is, if they can get into the playoffs, now to have a guy who can, show up in the big moments. The reality is you be a key part of a Super Bowl winning team, you're going to get a big contract. But what's key here is that he's living up to that contract and he's continuing to play very well. And so, yeah, I mean, I think it's a good contract. I think he's lived up to the hype. What do you guys think? Let me know. What do you think about Trent Brown? Always love hearing from you. And, of course, as always, thanks for watching.